Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of James. Today we're in James chapter 3, looking at verses 13 through 18. This is the concluding paragraph of the 3rd chapter. Now in this paragraph, James is talking to us about the need for wisdom. We need wisdom in our lives, but we need the right kind of wisdom. The right kind of wisdom. And notice how it begins. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. In other words, if you have real wisdom in your life, it will be shown in the goodness of how you live, by the humility of your life. This is the kind of living that comes from true wisdom. Now, you remember that James had talked about wisdom earlier in the letter. In chapter 1, verse 5, he had said, if any one of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, and he will give it to you generously without finding fault. It will be given to you. So, true wisdom comes from God as you seek it and ask in prayer. You want to live a wise life. You want to live a life of wisdom. So ask God to grant you that kind of wisdom. Now, James wants to make it clear there are different kinds of wisdom. There's a worldly wisdom, which is not of God. And then there's the wisdom that comes from heaven. That's what he begins to talk about in verse 14. Now he says, if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition, keep these things in your heart, then don't boast about it. Don't deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and every evil practice. James talks about a worldly wisdom that the culture of our day recognizes. He says, but this kind of earthly wisdom shows itself in ambition and the desire for power, the desire to get ahead of others. This is earthly. This is not spiritual. It is demonic. So the wisdom of the world, that's all about power, it's all about control, all about getting your own way. James says that's demonic. That is of the evil one. And it is attended by all kinds of evil practices. Though the world says it's wisdom, it is not. You must avoid such things. What kind of wisdom do you want? He goes on in verse 17 to say, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, it loves peace, it is considerate, it is submissive, it is full of mercy and good fruit, it's impartial, it is sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. James says, seek the wisdom of heaven, which is filled with humility and peace and love and kindness, mercy, good fruit. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a Christ-like spirit, and it is. True wisdom is living like Christ. This is the kind of wisdom James says we want. We must not follow the worldly way, seeking only what our own desires are after, seeking only our own welfare. No, we must live in love and in peace and in mercy and in compassion. That is, live with a Christ-like spirit. That is true wisdom. That comes from heaven. That comes from God. And how do you find it? How do you practice it in your life? You ask God for it. Lord, give me the wisdom of heaven. You know, this is very similar to when the Apostle Paul in his book of Galatians talks about the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, kindness, etc. You remember that passage. It's the same idea. This comes from heaven, from the Spirit of God. So ask God for it. Ask Him to fill you with His Spirit and to create a heavenly wisdom within you that will allow you to live as a Christ-like person, one who truly follows Jesus in every way. Now that is wisdom. That is wise living. And this is the kind of life we should seek to live. So ask God to grant you heavenly wisdom. Join us next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of James. We'll begin looking at James chapter 4.